Hey everybody, this is Peter with Tabletop Gaming Guild, and today we're going to be taking a quick look at one of Free League Publishing's newer releases, and that is Dragonbane the Bestiary. So Dragonbane's been out for a little bit now, I think a little over a year, and they've released their Bestiary to expand on all of the phenomenal creepy, scary creatures that you can throw at your players in the game. And you know, if you've watched any of our videos previously, I love a good bestiary. I love being able to flip through, read a little bit of lore about the different creatures, and it's freely publishing, so there's always going to be fantastic art. Their art for Dragonbane is reminiscent of the same art that they use for Vessin, but with a little bit more of a fantasy flair to it, and so I really enjoy that. What we're going to do is we'll kind of skip through the book. I've gone through and picked out some of my favorite creatures from each of the individual sections, but first what we're going to do is we'll jump to the back of the book and read what is on the back cover. Oh, will no good deed go unpunished? I suppose time will tell, but right now things are looking bleak indeed. I have wandered, ridden, climbed, crawled, and swum all over this earth. I have spoken with all manners of creatures, observed, analyzed, and recorded almost everything worth knowing about the people and beings of the world. And yet here I am, unthanked and crouched in a god-forsaken crevice, hunted by several of the creatures that I've graciously included in my catalog. How astoundingly rude. Theodora Sneezewort, one of a kind. From cat people to chimeras, fairies to frog people, hippogriffs to hydras, and much more, this bestiary from the Dragonbane role-playing game includes no less than 63 wondrous creatures for the player characters to encounter. Each of them is brought to life in text and art, as well as a random encounter and a seed for a complete adventure. Among these fantastic beings, there are 9 new playable kin, each with their own unique ability. This full-color hardcover book is gloriously illustrated by Johan Egerkens and David Bragzala. I've probably said Bragzala incorrectly, and I apologize. But here we have 63 new wonderful creatures to take a look at, 9 of which are also playable characters, which is super exciting. I always love having new playable characters to choose from. But let's go ahead and open up the book and take a look at the table of contents. We can see that they've broken the book down into 9 chapters. We have the Nightkin, the Rarekin, insectoids, trolls, giants, beasts, undead, dragons, and demons. The preface of the book is a little bit more of what I read off of the back. It is a few paragraphs written from the point of view of the person who has supposedly written this bestiary, and that is Theodora Sneezewort. I'll leave you to read that on your own when you pick up a copy of the book. But then we also get a new rollable chart for playable kin. So if you want to just randomly choose which kin you're going to be playing as, you can roll a d20 on this chart. And the first 7, the human, the halfling, the dwarf, the elf, the mallard, and the wolfkin, were all playable kin in the original rulebook, and now they have added 9 new playable kin. They have the orc, the ogre, the goblin, the hobgoblin, frog people, Karkion, cat people, lizard people, and satyr. Now, I always, like I said, I love having new options for playable kin so that my players have more options. My only issue with this is a couple of the names. So we have Mallard for our duck people, right? And we also have the Wolfkin for the wolf people. But we couldn't come up with cooler names for the frog people, the cat people, or the lizard people. Come on, Free League. We just needed 3 cool names instead of just a description for a name. So again, we don't call them duck people. They're mallards. I like it. We doubled down on a specific name, and I think for these 3, we probably could have done a little better. I think if I would end up running the game with some players that wanted to play those kin, might come up with just a more fun, descriptive name or interesting name rather than just a description of the people. Frog people, cat people, lizard people. That is a small quibble, but I wanted to go ahead and mention it. So like we said, the book is broken down into these 9 chapters, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to jump to a single creature from each one of the chapters, show you the art for it, talk a little bit about it, and tell you why I like it. Usually it's going to be because either I love the art for it or I really like one of the monster abilities that it has. But we'll start with the Nightkin. Now the Nightkin, we're going to go ahead and focus on the Goblin. But the interesting thing here is all 4 of the Nightkin in this book are now playable kin. So they may have shown up previously, some of these in the original rulebook, but they were just listed as possible NPCs or possible creatures to go up against. But here we get them as playable kin. And the one that I'm going to focus in on is the Goblin. I really, really love this art specifically. Goblins, for some reason, in the fantasy world for me, are always kind of like some of the first people. They seem to be so grounded in nature. And so I love this art of the Goblin riding around the wolf, which is just super enjoyable for me. I do love that even though these are playable kin, we still get random encounters and adventure seeds for these kin. I was afraid that maybe for the playable ones they would just focus on the stat blocks for the players, but again, even though they're not creatures that we're planning to specifically go up against and fight, and so they don't have their monster abilities, they do have the random encounters and the seeds. So again, Goblin is my favorite choice from the Nightkin group. Again, mostly for the art, which is selling the fantasy for me of the goblins being so connected to nature. The fact that the Goblin can ride this wolf around, I think, is just really cool. Then we're going to jump to page 41, and we're getting into the rare kin. And the kin that I chose for the rare kin is the Treekin. We get, again, a random encounter and an adventure seed for it. I love the art. If you're a Lord of the Rings fan, then maybe you love Treebeard. And so anytime I can play or act out a tree-type person, then I am on board. And again, with the monsters in Dragonbane, we have the attack that they're doing. We're not rolling for their attack, we're rolling to see what attack they do, and then they do it. And so it's just a d6, and I really, really like up, up, and away. If you roll a 5 on the d6, the monster grabs the victim and hurls it 2d8 meters away. The attack also inflicts an equal amount of bludgeoning damage, and the victim lands prone. If you're gonna have a big tree, it's gotta be able to pick people up and toss them about. So I'm a big fan of that. And there's other cool abilities that they have here, but that was my favorite of them. So I enjoy the art for this Treekin, and I also enjoy Up, Up, and Away as its monster attack. So I'm gonna be hoping that when I play and run a Treekin, I'll be able to launch some players around the mat. I think that'll be fun. So our next group of creatures are the insectoids, which I find very, very interesting. There's not all the time do we get the insectoids in our bestiary, so I'm glad they made their appearance here. And in this one, I'm picking the Beetlekin. The Beetlekin is the one that I'm choosing to take a look at, and for this one, again, I really like the art. It's not my favorite art in the book, but I do enjoy this one. It's my favorite one in the insectoids, even though the Antkin is also really cute, but I'm not going to show it to you. You got to go get the book if you want to take a look. But I also here like the surprise kick. The Beetlekin suddenly delivers a hard kick to an opponent who is pushed d6 meters away and suffers an equal amount of bludgeoning damage. The victim is also knocked down. You might see something here a little bit akin to the Treekin. I like abilities that push my player characters away from the bad guys, because everyone's always trying to get up into melee. I like being able to push them away and knock them down whenever I can. So here we don't even have just the Treekin, which is huge, that can do that, but we have a normal sized creature, the Beetlekin, that can also do that. That is my favorite of the insectoids, and now we're going to jump to the trolls. And in the trolls, we are going to take a look on page 57 at the Mountain Troll. Because isn't this dude like the saddest looking troll? Oh my gosh, looks kind of like inquisitive, but also kind of lonely. I don't want to fight this guy. I want to make friends with this guy. But lo and behold, don't get to make friends with him. Probably gonna have to fight him, and he has monster attacks. Monster attacks, 100 Years of Solitude. The troll fixes its gaze on an opponent within 10 meters who is immediately overcome with loneliness and sadness. Okay, you're looking at the picture with me, right? This is perfect. 100 Years of Solitude. They are overcome with loneliness and sadness. The victim becomes disheartened. Anyone who is already disheartened must choose another condition and must succeed with a will roll or lose their turn in the round if it has not already passed. I mean, how perfect to have a monster attack that fits the art for the creature. Sometimes you see it and you know, you don't always get that perfect meshing of the abilities of the characters with the look that you get in the art. You're meshing these two fantasies together, and I think they did a great job with this one. So for me, I like the art for this one, as well as 100 Years of Solitude does a great job of showcasing an attack that the monster has that sells also the fantasy of the creature itself. So that's my reason for choosing Mountain Troll and 100 Years of Solitude as my favorite attack for them. Next, we have the Giants. And in the Giants, we're going to go to page 67, and we have the Titan. Look at this beefy boy. All right? Now, it's interesting. I don't always love fantasy armor. It's not usually the thing that sells it for me. But when I thought of trolls, I wasn't thinking of a creature that was fully armored, right? Like, I look at this, and if you're a fan of Game of Thrones, I'm thinking of the Mountain, right? But that makes sense. Trolls are huge. They're mountain-sized type creatures, and to have one of them just be fully armored up is super intimidating. And we also get my favorite monster attack from them, and that is monster attack number 6, and that is Earthquake. The Titan takes a huge leap and lands on its armored feet, causing a minor earthquake. Everyone within 10 meters suffers D6 damage. Armor has no effect, and must make an agility roll to remain standing. The Titan obviously is not affected. So, big fan of the Titan. I was surprised to see a troll fully armored up, but it was a good surprise. Next, we're going to go ahead and jump to the Beast. So Beast, you know, we get a lot of creatures here that are just your normal average beast. You see them in a lot of fantasies. And if you've played, you know, that big D20 fantasy we all know, you might recognize this one, which is the Rock. It's a huge mountain-sized bird. It's massive. And I think the reason I chose this one specifically was, again, the art. And for this one, it's because I've seen a lot of pictures of a rock in other games. Usually it just kind of looks like a big raven or a big crow. There's nothing that really sells in the art the scale of the creature. And in this one, we actually get to see some adventurers fighting the Rock, showing us exactly the scale to which they are going up against. And I'm a big fan of it. I like the art. I like that we have one of the adventurers slowly kind of falling away from the Rock or being held, you know, kind of holding on with a bit of rope. And then the other one's simultaneously holding on to an arrow that's stuck into the leg of the Rock, and you're like, you know, you can kind of see them maybe wanting to pull the arrow free to cause a little bit more damage, but at the same time, that's your handhold, right? So a big fan of this one. And for this one, a pecking attack. When you think of a bird, you definitely think of pecking. And this one is just massive damage. 3d10 damage on the pecking attack. And then, of course, you also have the high drop. So this one, I liked 2 of these. I like the pecking attack, and I really like the high drop. The giant bird grabs an enemy with its talons and flies d6 plus 6 meters into the air before then dropping the unfortunate victim. The victim takes D8 slashing damage from the talons and additional bludgeoning damage from the fall. So if you're going to have a giant bird, they got to be able to pick up the people they're fighting and then throw them and drop them. So big fan of the rock. Next, we're going to be jumping to undead. Again, a very fantasy idea, fighting the undead. And for this one, I chose the very scary, unsettling ghoul. I like the shining bright eyes. You do not want to come across this creature at the dead of night. Those sharp fangs. This one, again, very unsettling. And I really like, for this one, I like the scream of the dead. You have the wretched creature lets out a terrible death scream. Everyone within 10 meters suffers a fear attack. And the scream attracts another ghoul who joins the fight in the next round. I appreciate that we have a creature that is not all about fighting by itself. It has an attack that literally brings more of its friends into the frenzy, and that can be overwhelming. That can be scary, and I think that's very fitting for an undead creature. Next, we're going to jump to the dragons. And in the dragons, I like the ancient dragon. And lo and behold, I'm sure you hadn't guessed, it's for the art. I love that they blend this dragon. These creatures, obviously the adventurers, think they're climbing up a mountainside covered in snow. It's this big hill covered in snow, but it's not. It's not a hill at all. Underneath the snow is the giant body of an ancient dragon. Pretty soon, the dragon's going to rouse itself up, and the entire hill is going to slide from underneath the players. They're going to go stumbling back in the snow, realizing that they have gone to the top of the air quotes hill, but it's actually the dragon. Big fan of that. Gotta love Inferno. Towering over its opponents, the dragon takes a deep breath and unleashes a blazing inferno from its cavernous maw. The fire forms a cone 20 meters long, whose width at any given point is equal to the distance from the dragon's jaws. All player characters hit by the flames take 4d10 fire damage, and of course, armor has no effect. Big fan of this. Love the art, love the story that the art is telling. And now we're going to go to the last section of the book and take a look at the demons. And from the demons section, I have chosen to take a quick look at the Chaos Demon. We have this really cool fire etched in sword. We have a demon that doesn't really have much of a face. You kind of get the little bit of a line that maybe shows you where an eye might be or the mouth might be. But this is a really cool looking Chaos Demon. I like it a lot, and it gets unseen force. The demon points its hand at an opponent within 10 meters. The victim is pushed back 2d6 meters, takes the same amount of bludgeoning damage, and lands prone. So you get to see a little bit of some of the same things happening here. And then again, for this one, I did choose a second one that I really like, and that's the Scorpion Sting. The Chaos Demon raises its scorpion-like tail and delivers a swift sting to its victim. The attack inflicts d12 piercing damage, and a victim who sustains at least 1 point of damage is also injected with a paralyzing poison with potency 15. The attack can be parried, so you have the ability to possibly parry the attack from the Chaos Demon. Again, all of these creatures are coming with their very own random encounters, so if you just want to throw them in to have the players be introduced to them, that's right here for you, as well as then the Adventure Seed, which can lead to a longer adventure for the players. So that is Dragonbane the Bestiary. I think they've done a great job of introducing some more new creatures, as well as giving us new player kin to utilize for the players. The art is fun, as always with Free League Publishing. And again, my only real big nitpick here for this book is frog people and lizard people, and what was the other one? Frog people, lizard people, and cat people. We just had to come up with some cooler names for a few of these kin, and I would have been super happy with the book. But as it is, I am happy. I think they did a great job. I always like having a bestiary that, again, it's not just creatures, it's the encounters, it's the adventure seeds, and new player kin as well. So everybody, thank you for watching the video. I hope you liked it. If you haven't checked out Dragonbane the game at all yet, we have done a video on Dragonbane the RPG from Freely Publishing. You can watch that on our channel here, or you can head over to freelypublishing.com to find out more about the game. Also check out the bestiary and all the other wonderful games that they are putting out over there. Thank you for watching, and until we talk again, everybody, keep on playing games.